The number one reason in 2026 why busy professionals are overwhelmed and they constantly firefighting, serving who is screaming the loudest, is scattered action items. What I mean by this, let's have a look here on this canvas. There might be some tasks coming via email. Maybe you are even having Outlook there, but let's use Gmail. Then we have tasks in a personal task manager. In my case, it would be Todoist. Then we have tasks coming from the project manager. Maybe it is Microsoft Teams in a written comment, or it is the Microsoft Planner, or in Jira, or whatever you're using for project management. And usually it's not only one tool in bigger companies that you are using. So in our case, it would be ClickUp. Then there might be actions items coming from meetings where you took some meeting notes. So I'm taking meeting notes in Heptabase, but maybe you do it in Apple Notes or whatever. And then we have the calendar, which is actually showing you the time restrictions in a day. A task list is always infinite, as you might know. Maybe you have thousands of items in your task manager, but a calendar day is always finite. You need to know what's on your plate already on today, just pure meetings that you might have. So let's also bring in Apple Notes as an example in case you're taking notes there. So now, just by looking at this, you already realize, maybe, let me know in the comments below if it is you, that you have scattered action items across all these areas. And as I said, it might be Apple reminders and I don't know, Google Tasks or whatever you're using for these things. You keep scattering these things, but not even on purpose. Maybe you force yourself to use a single source of truth for yourself, and yet you're still getting action items from the outside. And this is where a planner app becomes really powerful. I'm personally using Sunsama. There's also Equiflow, which is a similar way to consolidate everything together. In Sunsama, I can connect these tools together. And now we have to think about it. What is it that flows into Sunsama? It is action. So we have an email management course where we perfectly show that an email management system on your Gmail, Outlook is a task management tool itself, and how you triage it. So usually the things less than 2 minutes is not something that you should move in a task management tool. You process it directly inside the email. You use the snooze functionalities in email to manage these inboxes there. But if there are any action items that need more time, then you need to plan them out. And this only works if you have a comparison to all the other things that you have on your plate. So that's why we need to bring in all the other tools too. So maybe there are these tasks that I have in Todoist, and then there are the tasks that the team shared with me that I need to do. So you see, these are all actions. And now the question is, how do we get this into Sunsama too? We will talk about this in the end of the video. Let's forget this for now, because there's no direct connection to these tools. And yet people try to manage their actions inside PKM tools like this and build complex project management systems in Obsidian and so on. Total nonsense, because those are information management systems, knowledge management systems, and not for action management. That's why we have specialized tools like Todoist and ClickUp and so on. So now that these things are in Sunsama, there's one missing information that we need. It's the restrictions in time. So we need to connect our calendar, and this is not action. This is information. All right. It gives me the information of time restrictions. We could say it's action too, just because the meetings themselves is the actions that you're carrying out. But in most meetings, it's just information again. It's delegation, it's decision making, it's clarification, probably hundreds of times if you don't have a single source of truth in the team. That's what we need to keep in mind. And that's why this is just feeding in the information of time restrictions, whereas now we can compare it to our action items that we need to get done, and then make the prioritization inside Sunsama what we need to focus on. And this gives you now the superpower. If anybody comes to you at the floor and asks, hey, can you do this? You look into this tool, because now you have a holistic understanding of what's on your plate and if it is realistic to do anything else but the things that you planned out. That's what we teach in ICOR with the this week and next week approach, where you have your weekly goals and the day highlight of the day. It's a whole other story. If you want to dive into this, you can check out the free ICOR Journey Starter Kit inside myICOR, because there we talk about this, and obviously in our courses too. I will show you in a moment how this looks in Sunsama in action. But let's quickly talk about these things. How can we handle to get this in? And that's again where we need to realize this is just information. Even if you have checkboxes in there that look like tasks, you know, you can even add due dates in Heptabase to these tasks. It is still just information. And that makes it so flexible now, because now during meeting notes, you can make these checkboxes, have a holistic view in your inbox of all the action items that you have created, and then just triage them into the individual items. That's what we teach to our professional members, if you use Apple Notes just because you like handwriting or even the remarkable, right? You can do so, but you need to be aware that if you don't process this in the proper action systems, those things usually not getting done. Then you start searching through the things to find the things, and this is not an efficient productivity system. That's why we need to process this into the right places. And that was done manually, and it was controlled via daily routines. And daily routines also live in Sunsama. There it's just a checklist of things that you need to do, the inboxes that you need to check, the processes that you need to do. For example, there would be in your morning routine, check Apple Notes for any unprocessed action items. You go to Apple Notes, you open the last day, and then you process these then and strike it through in Apple Notes. That would be the manual process. But now with AI, things change. I love to use Claude for these things. And now with Claude Cowork, all this works. And I made a separate video about this if you want to watch it, where I show you how you can connect Apple Notes to Claude and how you process even your handwritten notes exactly the way that I'm showing it here. So again, it's information that is flowing now from Apple Notes into Claude. And from Claude, it decides now, is it just pure information, which then could actually move forward into Heptabase. So let's say you take meeting notes always on Apple Notes, and Claude decides that's something to enrich your actual PKM system. You can do this by Heptabase with a connection this way. And again, I showed in other videos how you do this. Or is it action items that you created here? And then it decides, is it something personal or is it really something for the business? And it can, if you write down a specific project name or something like that, it can find the project inside ClickUp. And this becomes now an action. And the same is for Todoist. Okay, personal things that it recognized. And now, look at this. I could go and just use even, we could even connect it to Google Calendar and Gmail. And this would be wild, right? Because now you could write everything in handwritten notes, but you have to provide the right context, like write email to, and then it would recognize better to send an email via Gmail, and also create an event for this in this date. It would be perfectly possible now to go out and create this Google Calendar. And this Claude was previously a human personal assistant, where the business owner, team leader or manager and so on, they've been simply doing handwritten notes, even on paper, and then they scan it in and send it to their assistant, and they processed everything into the right areas. But now this is Claude doing it. But it's still not helpful if all this gets processed in all these different areas, if we don't have, again, in the end, a consolidated place where we then again have the big picture of everything going on. And this is how you can build a sophisticated productivity flow in your business. If you want to build this yourself, our members have access to this tool builder, because our members can lay out their tool stack on the ICOR framework. And then you have access to all the tools that you are using already and drag them in here. So this is directly coming from the tool stack that I have laid out. We go a lot deeper into why we use what tools we use, and our methodology is tool agnostic. That's the reason. You can replace now this with any tools. You just need to understand what it is a task manager, what is a project management tool, what is a planner versus a calendar. These things are tool agnostic concepts and workflows that we teach in ICOR, and that you need to internalize first before you really understand how to build scalable systems this way, before you even think using AI, because here AI is enhancing my system that is already in place, where I know the individual steps that I need to do manually, that I now can think about what manual step could I hand over to AI to make things more efficient. Now, if you want to see how I use Sunsama on a daily basis, you can watch this video next, where I show you everything in greater detail. And I catch you up in the next one.